These are the new Gnosis primes from DZOfilm, a matte set of cinema lenses that have been designed specifically for macro work. And for context, if you were to get a set of cinema macro primes, it would normally cost a large amount of money. And you'll often find that lots of cinema lens sets do have a macro option in them. But it's normally just one telephoto focal length, like the 90mm macro that's in DZO's Vespid line. So if macro is your main style of work, these give you far more options in terms of versatility. Now, we think it's unlikely that you'd completely replace these with your regular set of cinema primes because these have much more of a niche feature set. But for the right kinds of projects, these would be excellent. So let's take a closer look. So for focal length, there's a 32, a 65, and a 90mm option. They all have maximum aperture of t2.8 and a minimum aperture of t22. The 32 has a 1:1 magnification ratio, the 65 has a 1:3, and the 90 has a 1:5. All of the gear rings for focusing and aperture are in the same position, which helps out when switching lenses, which is a must-have really for professional cinema primes. But of course, the real reason you'd be considering these lenses is their ability to focus on things at an extremely close distance. The 32mm in particular is able to keep subjects in sharp focus up until they're almost touching the lens, which is really quite impressive and leads to some unique perspectives. On this shot, you can see that the bottom part of the 32mm is actually touching the piece of paper. And here's what that looks like. You can even make out the little strands of fabric on the page. And as you would expect with cinema macro lenses, they have a long, smooth focus throw. These are all 300 degrees, which helps with achieving critical focus with smaller objects, which is great. But as you come to focus on subjects that are a normal distance away, you'll find that the focus throw ends up being quite small. That's because the 300 degrees has to cover such a large distance. And what this means in practice is that it can make it a bit more difficult to keep moving subjects in focus. Now, this is probably the biggest compromise of using these compared to using regular cinema lenses. Now, if you buy them individually or as a set, they'll ship with PL, LPL and EF mounts in the box. All three lenses have 16 aperture blades and an industry standard 114mm front diameter. They're all compatible with Super 35, full frame and Vista Vision sensors, which is great for peace of mind. And we ran some quick lens tests with the Gnosis primes and were quite impressed by the results. They handle flaring in quite a neutral and understated way, with small orbs that are consistent throughout the range. They have a noticeable vignette when wide open that goes away around T4. With sharpness, they perform similarly too. When wide open, in the center of the frame, they're all quite sharp. And there is some fall off in sharpness that you can see as you look towards the edges of the frame on these books here. But as you stop down to T4, there's a nice bump up in sharpness across the frame. When it comes to the out of focus areas with these lenses, you'll notice that when wide open at the center, the bokeh looks very circular. But as you look towards the edge of the frame, you'll notice that the bokeh gets quite cut off to almost like an oval shape. When you stop down to T4, they start to become more circular. And the same can be said for T5.6, and they become completely circular around T8. With color rendition, we notice that our set shifts slightly cooler on the telephoto side of the range. If you look at these vector scopes, you can see that the 65mm is slightly cooler than the 32, and the 90mm is slightly cooler than the 65, which is important to note. So all in all, we think that the Gnosis Cinema Primes are a great set of lenses. And while they're definitely quite niche and not your typical cinema lenses, they'll be great for people who are serious about their macro work. With the range of focal lengths here, it makes them an option that offers quite a lot of versatility. And considering their price point compared to what you'd usually pay for a matte set of cinema primes, these come in at a really competitive price too. But let us know what you think down below. And if you'd like to buy them for yourself, as always, you can head over to proav.co.uk. Thank you so much for watching and take care.